Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. Ms. Tharrett, I think in your testimony you made a reference to quoting someone else saying we're hiring and retaining the best, most talented and dedicated employees in healthcare. Now, I've recently learned that there have been at least 15 individuals that were let go due to grievous misconduct. That's defined elsewhere, and I'll expand the definition. Yet, under the direction of the central office and the settlement agreement, the VISNs will have to offer these 15 people who were judged to have been guilty of grievous misconduct to offer them reinstatement. So, my understanding of grievous is defined as misconduct related to patient abuse, reckless or intentional disregard for patient welfare, racial harassment, sexual harassment, impairment while on duty, violent threats, reckless or intentional endangerment of others, and or criminal activity. So explain to me how someone who may have been separated due to grievous misconduct has to be offered an opportunity to come back to work at the VISNs.
Senator Tillis, no one from my office was involved in the negotiations of that settlement. The Veterans Health Administration and the Office of General Counsel participated in those negotiations. So I'm going to ask Mr. Perry to speak to the process for identifying grievous misconduct cases.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. To your point, we did look at those cases, and so when we received the court ruling, we had to canvass all of our field sites to understand what their population of these cases that met the criteria of grievous misconduct. In that review, if we had questions, we worked collaboratively back with those offices to make sure that we had complete case files and could support the justification for the adverse action that was taken. In that review, there was a lot of back and forth to make sure that we got it right, and those cases did go up, and that was part of the final settlement agreement. Ultimately, anyone that does elect to come back and be reinstatement, we did have that carve out, as Mr. Robinson mentioned, that allows us to propose subsequent action upon their return under one of our other authorities.
Subsequent disciplinary action?
Based on the original actions, yes, sir. We can repropose those actions under 75 or 43.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
If I may, I'd just like to make one point. If an individual under the settlement agreement is deemed to or qualifies under the grievous misconduct category, they do not get reinstated.
Okay. You all are aware of the, I'm going to make sure I get the terminology right, the critical skills incentive. I know that's under investigation right now. I'm not going to dig too deep, except to say, let's assume that somebody thought that the population that got the bonuses, the executives, should have been subject to some sort of process. So I don't want to talk about who got it. I want to talk about the methodology that was used that would have provided a rational basis that these certain skill categories fit congressional intent. Can I at least get an answer on that?
Yep, absolutely, Senator Tillis. So first, we are very grateful for the authorities in the PACT Act. It helped us to hire at record levels in both VHA and VBA this past year, grow the workforce by a percentage we haven't seen in the last 15 years. With the critical skills incentives, what I can offer is the purpose of that incentive is to close mission critical skills gaps or to promote reskilling of employees. And in our policy, we have two categories by which someone can be eligible for a critical skills incentive. Either they have a shortage skill, which is on an approved list. That means either our human capital operating plan includes that shortage skill, or it's in one of the OIG shortage lists or VHA shortage occupation lists. 96% of the critical skills incentives that we have approved to date fall within that category of a shortage skill on one of those approved lists.
And would these executive positions have fit into that list?
They did not, sir.
Okay.
So there's a second category called high demand skills, which you need a market factors justification to support. Once these were processed and they were raised with our secretary as having been approved, we looked back and we did not see that the precision that was needed to identify the individuals that were recommended for the CSI as having a high demand skill that was supported by market factors, and the Group incentives are to be very narrowly defined. This was way too broad with too many occupational series, too many varied occupations. So since that occurred, the Office of Inspector General is doing a review so they can help us strengthen our policies and procedures, add more internal controls to the use, and the Secretary has raised the delegation of authority for CSIs to senior executives to his level, so that any recommendations in the future have to be approved by him.
Okay.
We have also, I'm sorry, one more thing. We have also canceled all of the CSIs that were processed for our VHA and VBA central office executives, are establishing debts and collecting those monies that were paid.
Okay, so did I hear you say clawback?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, thank you.